Music. On November 20th, 1992, Windsor Castle, residence of British royals for nearly a millennium, erupted in flames. The blaze ravaged the grand state rooms. Thick smoke billowed from panes that had framed ages of legacy. Amid the inferno, some of humanity's most priceless artworks remained at risk. Sketches by Leonardo da Vinci, Rembrandt's masterpieces, pieces from Rubens, Van Dyck, Vermeer, art valued at $5 billion ensnared in an ancient stronghold ablaze. As crews fought the conflagration, Queen Elizabeth II appeared on the scene. Rather than watching from afar, she stepped into the structure. She personally assisted in transporting canvases to safety, one by one, hurrying ahead of fires that devoured chambers in mere moments. The items she helped rescue that day transcend their financial worth. They form the world's premier private art trove, spanning 500 years of royal gatherings, gems bought, passed down, bestowed, and sometimes pilfered, all amassed in a single fortress along the Thames. Tourists flock to Windsor for its towers, chapel, and guard ceremonies. Few grasp the treasures concealed within. Rembrandt works fetching $50 million apiece, more than 500 Leonardo da Vinci sketches, the globe's biggest assembly, housed in a regulated vault beyond most eyes. Vermeer panels so scarce that just 34 survive worldwide, plus sufficient Canaletto vistas to stock a full Venetian exhibit. This narrative uncovers its origins, the monarchs who amassed it, the sovereign who almost saw it vanish, and the gems shielded by palace barriers that elude public view. For those who relish in-depth looks at history and design, think about subscribing. We delve into the tales of America's and Britain's premier properties. We'll start with the blaze. Chapter 1. The evening the monarch rescued Windsor. The incident ignited shortly past 11 a.m. from a light in the personal chapel. Defective cables. Experts later determined it as the sort of mishap in structures 9 centuries aged, where contemporary wiring threads ancient masonry. In moments, the fire climbed to roof timbers. In 60 minutes, it engulfed 9 official suites. St. George's Hall, a 180-foot emblem of medieval splendor, turned to a furnace. Its roof caved in. Masonry from the 1300s fractured under intense heat. Windsor was self-destructing from within. The on-shift watchman adhered to guidelines flawlessly. He activated the alert. He summoned rescuers. Then he began shifting artworks. All personnel at Windsor mastered the escape drill from the outset. Which pieces to seize initially, the paths to follow, the rally points outdoors. For Windsor serves as a gallery that doubles as a residence. Swiftly, employees dashed through hazy halls bearing Rembrandt images, dragging Van Dyck panels to lower levels, relaying invaluable items along a chain of hands from the formal areas to the secure yard underneath. 225 fire personnel mobilized. They hailed from outposts throughout Berkshire. Some reached amid roofs spewing fire. Others spotted haze from afar over the Thames Valley. Queen Elizabeth II, then at Buckingham Palace, got the alert. Windsor was aflame. She headed there immediately by car. She entered pandemonium, engines everywhere, fumes surging from openings, workers ferrying chairs, hangings, whatever they could manage. And the 76-year-old queen refused to spectate remotely. She entered the building and joined the effort. Witnesses described her hauling goods personally. Canvases, volumes, archival papers, anything salvageable. Prince Andrew, present at Windsor when it began, acted similarly. He remarked to the press afterward that daylight timing proved lucky. A nighttime start, with slimmer staffing, might have wrought devastation. The blaze raged for 15 hours. When crews subdued it at last, 9 staterooms lay ruined or badly harmed. St. George's Hall had vanished, the roof fallen completely, walls endured, yet their contents had incinerated. Still, astonishingly, nearly every artwork endured. More than 300 paintings and sketches got extracted. Rembrandt likenesses now worth $50 million individually. Rubens's sacred depictions, Van Dyck's regal images, Canaletto's Venetian scenes, all borne to protection by workers versed in their significance. Certain objects proved immovable, too bulky, delicate, or affixed solidly. A handful of minor pieces perished in spaces overtaken before access, yet the toll paled against potential ruin. In a single chamber, bare frames lingered on soot-stained surfaces. The artworks were whisked away only moments prior to the ceiling giving way. Those frames lingered in place for years to follow, serving as a stark symbol of how narrowly Windsor escaped total devastation. The query that lingered on everyone's mind in the aftermath was straightforward. How did the personnel determine what to rescue first? How did they execute those rapid choices on which Rembrandt to snatch and which Van Dyck to abandon? The explanation sheds light on a vital aspect of Windsor Castle. This place isn't like a gallery where pieces dangle in precisely regulated environments, shielded by silken barriers. Rather, it's an active royal dwelling where invaluable creations adorn the spaces the Queen truly inhabits. Employees encounter these masterpieces daily. They polish them. They fine-tune the illumination. They possess intimate familiarity with every item in the holdings. As flames erupted, no inventory list was required for reference. Their choices flowed from deep-seated knowledge of which items held the utmost worth, the deepest historical resonance, and the least replaceability. They retrieved Leonardo sketches from the vaults. They yanked Vario canvases from their mounts. They safeguarded artifacts that scholars deem pinnacles of Western artistic heritage. Queen Elizabeth II described it as the darkest moment of her existence, not due to the structural harm, for edifices can be restored. What crushed her was the peril to the artworks themselves. Half a millennium of royal British acquisitions nearly obliterated in one fateful afternoon. The blaze prompted a pressing inquiry. Precisely what safeguarded treasure lay within Windsor Castle? What assemblage could command billions in value? And how did such wonders accumulate in a single ancient bastion along the Thames? To unravel this, we must journey back 9 centuries, to the era when Windsor was merely a timber outpost atop a rise, with no hint it would evolve into the premier private trove of art globally. Chapter 2. 9 Centuries of Evolution. Windsor Castle didn't originate as an exhibition hall. It emerged as a defensive stronghold. In 1070, William the Conqueror had recently claimed England. To secure his domain, he required bulwarks. He erected a circle of strongholds encircling London, spaced a full day's travel apart. Windsor formed part of that network. Its site was tactically brilliant, a limestone escarpment overlooking the Thames, offering elevated vantage points with unobstructed vistas all around. Any force advancing on London from the westward route would come under scrutiny from Windsor's ramparts. William constructed it swiftly, using timber and soil without extravagance, a modern Bailey setup that could rise in mere months. The cylindrical tower visible now occupies the spot of William's initial wooden stronghold. All else has undergone reconstruction, enlargement, and reconfiguration, yet the foundational elevation persists unaltered. Windsor continues to dominate the very prominence William selected almost a millennium past. During the ensuing 200 years, reigning monarchs swapped timber for stone. They erected sturdy barriers, incorporated turrets, and commenced the initial iteration of St. George's Chapel. Windsor progressed from a provisional bastion to an enduring seat of royalty. By the 1300s, it ranked among England's foremost regal abodes. Sovereigns conducted governance here. Assemblies convened inside its confines. The Order of the Garter, Britain's most esteemed chivalric society, established its base at Windsor in 1348, a role it upholds to this day. With each successive era, the fortress expanded. Edward III largely overhauled the upper ward amid the mid-1300s, fashioning lavish quarters befitting a medieval ruler. Henry VIII contributed further enhancements. Elizabeth II bolstered fortifications. In the 1670s, Charles II revamped the ceremonial suites into forms resembling their current splendor. Every augmentation yielded additional areas, chambers, and surfaces demanding adornment. Thus commenced Windsor's metamorphosis, from bastion to opulent abode, from martial outpost to artistic haven. This transition unfolded incrementally. Medieval rulers certainly embellished their holds, employing woven hangings, devotional images, and emblematic banners, but these served as mere embellishments, not curated assortments. No one viewed themselves as stewards of heritage. The mindset shifted in the 1600s. Charles the Ranners, in particular, regarded art through a fresh lens distinct from his forerunners. He sought not simply wall coverings, but elite masterpieces. He aimed to rival Europe's premier collectors. He aspired to build a true ensemble. He achieved it only to see it slip away. But more on that shortly. By the 1800s, Windsor had solidified into its present form, the world's largest continually inhabited castle, spanning 13 acres with over 1,000 chambers, an operational royal home where the sovereign resides amid artworks that rival those in any public institution. The expanse defies easy comprehension. Windsor comprises not a solitary edifice, but an intricate array of constructions amassed across 900 years, interlinked and operating as one cohesive domain. The grand reception areas that visitors tour represent only a sliver of the expanse. Beyond these accessible zones stretch intimate quarters, administrative spaces, sanctuaries, reading rooms, secure depositories, and extensive passageways linking countless chambers unseen by the public. 39 British rulers have resided at Windsor. Each imprinted their legacy. Each augmented both the architecture and the accumulations. The walls of Windsor Castle echo with centuries of royal legacy. Following Prince Albert's death in 1861, Queen Victoria transformed it into her main home. She largely withdrew to Windsor, lingering there for years in deep sorrow. The fortress grew to symbolize her prolonged widowhood. George V and Queen Mary resided here at length. Elizabeth II regarded it as her true base. Throughout her rule, she passed weekends at Windsor and relocated there full-time in her later days. She passed away at the castle in September 2022 and rests in St. George's Chapel. King Charles III upholds this custom. Windsor serves as an active royal dwelling. The royal standard waves when he is there. Personnel look after the personal quarters. The estate operates just as it has for ages, functioning simultaneously as a residence and an exhibition space. This twin role poses distinct difficulties. How can one safeguard invaluable artworks while coexisting with them? How does one welcome visitors to certain areas while shielding others from view? How does one reconcile the demands of a public gallery with those of a private household? Windsor handles these through meticulous division of spaces. The official staterooms remain accessible to the public for much of the year. Guests stroll through, admire the collections, and depart. The family quarters stay strictly private. Even employee entry is limited, and some areas shift roles based on the monarch's presence. The castle supports a large workforce, including custodians, restorers, experts in history, guards, upkeep crews, and tour leaders, an extensive network focused on protecting the structure and its contents. The treasures within Windsor go beyond mere worth. They are one of a kind. 9 centuries of gathered items, masterpieces acquired by rulers with boundless funds, objects so embedded in place that relocating them seems impossible. Yet the holdings nearly did not endure. On several occasions across Windsor's past, the artworks faced risks of scattering, auctioning, or ruin. The 1992 blaze marked the latest peril, but the most severe danger arose far sooner, in 1649, when a monarch was executed and his full array of art was offered for sale. Chapter 3. Charles I and the Treasures That Disappeared. Charles Stuart ascended to the English throne in 1625. He took over a sovereignty spanning 3 realms, along with scarcely any notable art. This irked him. Charles had been exposed to continental courts during his youth. He had witnessed the opulent halls of Spain, the vast collections of France, and the hoards built by Italian nobility. He recognized excellence in art, and he saw that England possessed little of it. The royal assets of England, limited as they were, mostly included family likenesses, woven hangings, devotional canvases, nothing to awe a diplomat from Venice or Madrid, nothing to place Britain among Europe's premier cultural centers. Charles resolved to alter that. He commanded ample riches. The monarchy oversaw immense fortunes. He possessed refined discernment. In contrast to rulers who amassed pieces for prestige alone, Charles harbored a true passion for art. He could converse on methods with artists, argue aesthetics with academics. He understood his acquisitions, and fate provided a chance. The Gonzaga dynasty, rulers of Mantua, faced dire financial straits. They had curated one of Europe's premier assortments over 200 years. Now impoverished, they were ready to divest. Charles dispatched envoys to bargain. The cost was staggering, 15,000 worth several million in modern terms. In exchange, he gained canvases by Titian, Raphael, Correggio, Mantegna, items held by the Gonzaga for generations, supreme works that eluded most aficionados. The artworks reached England in 1628. Charles spread them across his estates. Hampton Court claimed a good share. Windsor took in others. Whitehall Palace, his chief London seat, displayed the choicest selections, yet he pressed on beyond the Gonzaga deal. He acquired relentlessly Italian canvases, Flemish creations, all that matched his exacting eye. He engaged Anthony van Dyck for portraits, appointing him principal artist and yielding some of the most enduring royal depictions. Van Dyck's renderings of Charles defined the ruler's likeness. Charles mounted on steed in full plate, embodying the warrior sovereign. Charles in refined attire, exuding polish and learning. Charles amid his kin, capturing ideal regal family life. These went further than mere images. They served as promotion, shaping the monarch's desired public persona. Rubens arrived in England in 1629 for diplomatic duties. He inspected the royal displays and wrote to peers abroad that the English sovereign had forged a truly remarkable assembly, one competitive with the finest in Italy, France, and Spain. For a fleeting period, Charles realized his vision. England now boasted a monarchical art reserve befitting a leading European nation. Then it all unraveled. The 1640s ushered in civil strife. Charles against Parliament, Crown against the people, supporters of the king versus the Puritans. The conflicts had only just begun. The conflicts were a messy blend of deep faith, power struggles, and battles over who truly held sway in England, ultimately leading to clashing forces on the battlefield and the monarch emerging defeated. He attempted deals, fled the scene, and mustered fresh troops. None of it succeeded. Come 1648, lawmakers had seized him and were wrestling with the fate of a detained ruler. They opted to prosecute him for betraying his realm. The proceedings were dubious from a legal standpoint, to say the least. Monarchs were meant to bow only to divine authority. Still, Parliament pressed on. Charles faced a guilty verdict, his punishment, execution. On that fateful January 30th, 1649, Charles Stuart stepped onto a platform beyond Whitehall Palace, the very halls adorned with his prized artworks. He delivered a short address, offered prayers, and placed his neck upon the chopping block. Thus, England put its sovereign to death. The nation now grappled with disposing of his vast estate. Parliament's approach was straightforward. Auction it off, every bit of it. While the royal residences stayed under crown ownership, what filled them became open to bids. Armoires, wall hangings, tableware, gems, and masterpieces. All would be sold to settle obligations and bolster the lawmakers' coffers. Dubbed the Commonwealth Sale, this dispersal kicked off in 1649 and dragged on for an extended period. Envoys inventoried possessions across all regal estates. They appraised each one. They lined up purchasers, and gradually the treasures scattered. The Gonzaga gems he had labored to secure hit the block. Plenty returned to European mainland owners. Several landed in Iberian collections. More found homes in France. A smattering remained domestic, snapped up by affluent aristocrats. The Van Dyck likenesses went under the hammer. Titian's visions, Raphael's panels, Rubens's oils. Off they went in a grand clear-out. Once the Commonwealth wrapped up liquidating the crown's goods, a premier European trove lay fragmented far and wide. Canvases that once shared gallery space in British halls now graced sites in numerous nations. Certain artifacts lingered at Windsor, but solely as fixtures of the structure. Hangings too cumbersome to relocate, works fused into the architecture. Select few that overseers ruled as eternal crown assets, not personal to Charles. Upon his restoration in 1660, after years abroad, Charles II had regained his sire's seat only to discover the royal cache in ruins. His predecessor had devoted lifetimes to crafting a remarkable assemblage. Parliament unraveled it in mere years. The restored ruler sought to reclaim remnants where possible. He dispatched scouts throughout Europe to hunt auction survivors. He reclaimed a handful, yet the bulk had vanished for good, swallowed into hordes unwilling to yield them. The devastation was immense. Scholars of art history continue arguing over precisely what evaporated in those dispersals. Documentation survives, though it's patchy. Certain pictures trace to modern venues in galleries or elite stashes. Others evaporated completely, their present sites a mystery. One undeniable truth stands. Charles Leorens curated a standout collection of his time. He stocked English estates with virtuoso creations. He infused his court with refined tastes it had once lacked. Then came his beheading, and Parliament hawked all he'd amassed. Windsor Castle retained several items. Mantegna's Triumphs of Caesar endured there somehow, despite ongoing scholarly disputes over why the evaluators spared them at Hampton Court. A scattering of additional creations persisted, ignored or judged unworthy of sale, but the overwhelming share evaporated, spread thin, gone from England eternally. Another 100 years would pass before British royals pieced together a comparable array, and in doing so, they guarded it far more vigilantly. Chapter 4. George III's Venetian Fixation. George III ascended the throne in 1760 at age 22, sincere and resolved to diverge sharply from his forebears. His granddad, George II, scarcely uttered English. His great-granddad, George III, had devoted much of his rule to yearning for Hanover's comforts. The initial pair of Georges viewed England as a mere venture, advantageous and lucrative, yet not a true abode. George III stood apart. England-born, England-bred, quintessentially English, he aimed to embody an authentic British sovereign, and that entailed bolstering British legacies, among them the Royal Art Collection. His bequest was solid yet spotty. Charles II had salvaged fragments post-Commonwealth chaos. Later rulers had supplemented further, but voids persisted. Key artistic traditions had scant showing. The reserves wanted substance. George consulted experts versed in aesthetics. They pinpointed the absences. They knew sourcing spots. And by 1762, they unveiled a remarkable prospect. Joseph Smith neared his end. For years, Smith had acted as Britain's envoy in Venice. He'd immersed himself there so thoroughly, he might as well have been a native. Fluent in the tongue, intimate with all the merchants and creators residing in Venice, Smith had devoted 5 decades to curating one of Europe's premier private art assemblages. Yet he found himself penniless. Every penny had gone toward acquiring artworks. His grand palazzo brimmed with canvases, sketches, volumes, codices, numerous pieces by the Venetian virtuoso Canaldo, panels from Vermeer, Hollin, Parmigianino, sketches by Raphael and Michelangelo, scarce tomes, and ornate manuscripts, a half-century of discerning expert accumulation. Facing financial straits and lacking successors, he recognized the need to liquidate. The collection would scatter upon his passing regardless. Selling it as a unified whole to a buyer committed to preserving its integrity seemed wiser. George's counselors acted swiftly. They secured a deal for the complete cash, each canvas, each sketch, each volume, bundled into a single agreement, a solitary sum, no fragmentation allowed. The agreement finalized in 1762, the precise figure, dispersed, stays ambiguous, though accounts from the era point to roughly 20,000. In exchange, George gained the foundation of Windsor's artistic vault. The delivery from Venice comprised massive containers brimming with artworks, numbering in the hundreds, over 170 creations by the Venetian landscapist himself, not mere drafts or exercises, but polished panels, capturing Venice with exquisite fidelity. The Grand Canal, the Bacino di San Marco, the Piazza San Marco, all prominent sites depicted in radiant, exacting style. This painter had long captivated British patrons. Aristocrats on the grand tour snapped up his output as mementos, Venetian scenes to adorn their estates, evoking cultured journeys. Yet no one commanded such a vast array of Venetian panoramas as George did henceforth. The Smith purchase bestowed upon him the most extensive trove of these works ever gathered. Still, these captivating urban tableaux, striking though they were, didn't represent the transaction's crown jewel. Concealed amid the cargo lay a masterpiece by Johannes Vermeer. The music lesson, executed circa 1662, precisely 100 years prior to George's procurement, a female figure poised at a virginals, that harpsichord-like device. A gentleman observes nearby. Rays of sunlight pour in from the left side casements, bathing the tableau in Vermeer's signature luminescence. The paving stones stretch back in flawless perspective, each element crafted with uncanny accuracy. By 1762, Vermeer works were already scarce. Just a handful survived, mostly housed in Dutch troves. George's team might not have fully appreciated the gem they secured. Vermeer hadn't yet ascended to the legendary status he'd claim in future eras, yet they sensed its excellence. Exceptional excellence. Modern scholars reckon only 34 Vermeer paintings endure globally. Windsor's music lesson counts among them. Its worth defies quantification. Should it ever reach the block, which it won't, projections place it beyond $200 million. George pursued the Smith Trove not as a financial venture. His counselors assured him it would raise the crown's assets to stature worthy of a leading continental dynasty. And they proved correct. The canvases found homes at Windsor Castle. The sketches and volumes joined the royal repository. The entirety remained cohesive, just as Smith had shaped it. Throughout his rule, George kept expanding the hoard. He procured additional sketches, more canvases, further volumes. He backed native talents, ordered likenesses, bolstered the Royal Academy, but the Smith deal stood as his paramount feat. No other matched its magnitude or import. Those Venetian vistas reshaped art presentation at Windsor. Such a profusion of identical city renderings, all from one artist's brush, formed an enclave gallery inside the residence. Chambers where walls brimmed with successive Venetian prospects. The impact felt enveloping, evocative. Windsor guests could virtually traverse Venice while staying in England. The hall also supplied pieces that patched holes in the regal stock, absent Italian Renaissance sketches, scant Northern European canvases from earlier buys. The Smith editions didn't merely augment, they perfected the vault in vital respects. George's aides selected astutely. Smith transcended the mere affluent hoarder chasing flashy items. He possessed real acumen. Venetian artistry was his domain. He prioritized excellence over volume. His years of methodical pursuit yielded a unified, priceless ensemble. Upon the container's arrival at Windsor, attendants unveiled gems enduring there 250 years on. The identical Venetian scenes George claimed in 1762 grace Windsor's ceremonial rooms even now. The identical Vermeer, the identical sketches. Scarcely any Smith item has departed Windsor since. Such enduring stability marks a rarity in artistic annals. Holdings typically fragment, descendants auction off segments, institutions swap or loan out, but the Smith cache held firm, rooted at Windsor, weaving so deeply into the palace fabric that excising any element grew inconceivable. The purchase, by George III, went far beyond simply enriching Windsor's artistic holdings. It elevated the royal collection to the status of one of Europe's premier treasures. It offered the British royals a source of genuine prestige to showcase to foreign guests. It demonstrated that England, frequently viewed as lagging behind France and Italy in cultural sophistication, could hold its own in this particular domain, and it amassed an extraordinary concentration of artistic masterpieces in one spot. A single fortress along the Thames now possessed more depictions of Venice than the city itself boasted, safeguarded a Vermeer during a time when such pieces were exceedingly scarce, and housed sketches from Renaissance giants that drew scholars from across the continent for examination. The transaction produced another consequence, possibly unintended. It rendered Windsor Castle susceptible, though not to armed assault. Britain's adversaries had no intention of raiding Windsor for artworks, yet it left the site especially exposed to risks like flames, burglary, and calamity. After all, when immense value is gathered in a single location, it demands unceasing, flawless safeguarding. A single oversight, whether in defenses or firefighting measures, could erase generations of gathered heritage. George III himself never fretted over such dangers. The artworks were delivered, installed on the walls, and remained there, shielded, stable, fortified by robust masonry and monarchical power. But in subsequent eras, as the collection expanded further with additional iconic pieces piling up at Windsor, that inherent risk grew ever more evident. And by 1992, it almost led to utter devastation. Chapter 5. The Hidden Repository. Few tourists at Windsor Castle ever hear mention of the vault. They stroll the grand reception rooms. They gaze at the exhibited canvases. They explore St. George's Chapel. They observe the guards' ceremonial shift. Then they depart, content with the curated glimpse Windsor permits. Hidden from view is the print room, tucked away in the castle's secluded areas. Beyond thresholds, no visitor crosses. It features precise climate management, balanced moisture, steady temperatures throughout the seasons, and intentionally dimmed illumination. Safeguards are so rigorous that even many palace employees require clearance to enter. Within lie 550 creations by Leonardo da Vinci, forming the world's most extensive assemblage of his output. Surpassing the Louvre's holdings, outstripping any Italian institution, exceeding the combined archives of all Florence's galleries, all preserved in flat files under subdued obscurity, viewed by scarcely anyone. Leonardo passed away in 1519. He bequeathed under 20 completed paintings. The majority now reside in public galleries. The Mona Lisa graces Paris, the Last Supper adorns a Milanese wall, Virgin of the Rocks resides in London, along with perhaps a dozen more dispersed throughout Europe. Yet Leonardo's talents extended far beyond painting. He excelled as an engineer, scientist, anatomist, architect, and innovator. For years, he crammed journals with insights, trials, blueprints, anatomical dissections revealing sinews and skeletons with meticulous accuracy, drafts of devices unrealized for ages, notes on fluid dynamics, botanical development, rock strata, cartography, building designs, weaponry concepts, aerial contraptions, and water management schemes. He sketched relentlessly, producing thousands of folios. After his passing, most were compiled into codices. Those volumes later fragmented, scattered, or vanished. Surviving leaves appear in assorted global repositories, but the biggest surviving cluster found its way to Windsor. Their journey there involved fortune and circumstance. Upon Leonardo's death, his legacy transferred to his apprentice Francesco Melzi. Melzi preserved the entirety for years, cherishing it as invaluable legacy. Following Melzi's demise in 1570, however, his descendants lacked that devotion. To them, these were merely aged documents, not gems. Certain codices fetched prices, others faded into oblivion. Circa 1590, a sculptor called Pompeo Leone acquired numerous such stray pages. Leone toiled in Milan and Madrid. He amassed Leonardo's materials with fervor. He sourced sheets from various origins, aiming to reconstruct the dispersed remnants. Beyond mere gathering, Leone restructured them. He reshuffled Leonardo's documents, which had once been grouped in volumes by subject or sequence, and affixed them into oversized binders, imposing his own classification. One tome for body studies, another for building drafts. This effort obliterated Leonardo's initial arrangement, but preserved hundreds of pages intact. Leone encased his Leonardo bindings in fine leather, crafting opulent tomes that cut an elegant figure on any bookcase. And prior to his own death in 1613, these volumes somehow reached England. The precise route stays obscure. Certain scholars propose that Thomas Howard, Earl of Arundel, imported them from Italian sojourns. Others posit Charles I obtained them amid his wide-ranging acquisitions. Indisputably, by 1690's cataloging efforts, the bindings formed part of the crown's possessions. They belonged to Charles II. Whether he fully grasped their significance is open to question. The ledgers merely noted them as Leonardo's productions. Nothing exceptional, merely one more asset. Part of an extensive assortment, those volumes remained at Windsor across the 1700s and into the 1800s. From time to time, researchers examined them. Painters might seek permission to view particular drawings. Academics penned articles on the contents, yet for the most part, the albums lingered in archives, extraordinary yet overlooked. During the 1900s, the royal holdings finally undertook thorough documentation and safeguarding of these gems. Specialists delicately extracted folios from Leonardo's bindings, housing each one in specialized archival settings. They captured images of it all. They indexed every leaf. They investigated origins and timelines. Their efforts uncovered the true magnificence of Windsor's Leonardo assets. Anatomical drawings depicting dissections the master conducted personally. Depictions of human hearts with precision unmatched until contemporary medicine. Outlines of sinews, ligaments, skeletons, all annotated in Leonardo's signature, reversed script. He inscribed from right to left, inverted, decipherable solely through reflection. Certain experts believe it stemmed from his left-handedness, a natural trait. Others propose it served as a method to shield his ideas from prying eyes. The mechanical designs reveal Leonardo's intellect tackling engineering challenges: cogwheels and ropes, aerial devices with avian flapping appendages, underwater vessels, descent devices, armored vehicles powered by hand-cranked mechanisms. The majority remained unrealized. A few proved unfeasible with the era's tools, though their conceptual brilliance outpaced his contemporaries by ages. The observations of the natural world proved just as astonishing. Leonardo rendered flora with scientific exactitude. He captured felines in mid-stride, seizing motion more vividly than many lensmen. He portrayed cascading streams, probing the chaos of swirls and currents. He illustrated boulders and peaks, formulating ideas on Earth's shaping processes, and the portraits of visages stand out too. Leonardo sketched countenances relentlessly: elderly gentlemen with creased flesh and cascading whiskers, youthful ladies with flawless contours, distorted lampoons featuring outsized snouts and jaws. He probed the nuances of sentiment, deciphering how feelings manifest in countenances' sinews. These explorations directly influenced his canvases. The expressions in The Last Supper, each apostle reacting uniquely to Jesus' words of treachery, drew from prolonged scrutiny of folks displaying shock, bewilderment, fury, rejection. Windsor's trove encompasses it all. Beyond mere volume, it offers vast scope. Da Vinci's inquisitive spirit shines through in every domain. Each technique he employed, quill and pigment, sanguine crayon, charcoal, metal point, diluted tint, suited varied aims, all executed with unmatched mastery, yet scarce few behold them. The issue lies with illumination. Vellum and pigment erode under exposure, not abruptly or starkly, but across decades and eras. Radiant harm builds up, hues dull, sheets discolor and grow fragile. The longer an item remains exhibited, the faster it declines. Windsor prioritizes stewardship. These creations endured 5 centuries. The aim: sustain them for 5 more. That demands seclusion in obscurity much of the time. Regulated warmth, steady moisture, scant contact, utmost care. Periodically, Windsor mounts a Da Vinci showcase. They choose a modest selection, exhibit them for a short spell, then sequester them anew. Such events attract massive throngs. Visitors queue for ages to glimpse what's usually concealed. Once concluded, the items retreat to the repository for years on end. In 2019, marking half a millennium since the master's passing, Windsor hosted the grandest Leonardo display in more than 60 years. 200 works unveiled at once. Queues wound around the fortress. Seats vanished weeks ahead. Curators journeyed globally. Then it wrapped up, and the pieces returned to shadow. This yields a peculiar dilemma. Windsor possesses the planet's premier assembly of Leonardo's creations, but possession entails concealment. Safeguarding demands obscurity. The stronger Windsor's guardianship of these wonders, the less the public encounters them. For ages, this posed no issue. Monarchical troves were personal. Sovereigns acquired masterpieces for private delight, not communal viewing. If only sporadic erudites glimpsed the Leonardo cache, that sufficed. Contemporary standards differ, though. Audiences expect monumental works to reach everyone. Galleries thrive by revealing holdings, not burying them. Windsor navigates a tricky boundary, a sovereign abode that shelters communal riches, a dwelling doubling as an institution. And within its print chamber, it safeguards artifacts too precious for routine show, yet too vital to remain undisclosed. Assigning worth to Windsor's Leonardo cache proves futile. No true valuation fits items destined never to trade. Still, if pressed, appraisers reckon the ensemble might exceed $500 million. Certain solitary folios could fetch millions apiece on open sale. They never will. They mustn't. They remain crown property eternally. Those sketches form an integral part of Windsor Castle, just like its ancient walls. Pulling them out would equate to dismantling the very base it's built on. Instead, They remain tucked away in shallow trays within carefully regulated dimness, protected and maintained, with rare peaks allowed and the rest concealed from view. Earth's most extensive assembly of Leonardo da Vinci's creations, secured in a secure chamber that few ever access. Chapter 6. The State Apartments, a showcase of renowned artists. The visitor path through Windsor Castle traces a defined path, from the entryway, ascending the majestic stairway into the state rooms. Room by room, it delivers precisely the highlights that guests flock to witness. Masterworks abound. None are confined to stark-walled exhibit halls under spotlights, nor are they roped off with explanatory plaques detailing origins and methods. Rather, they simply adorn the walls where they have remained for ages, in areas that royals continue to employ for official banquets and international gatherings. The impressive stairway establishes the mood right away. Tourists ascend wide stone flights under a frescoed dome depicting mythological vignettes. Armored figures flank the sides, alongside armaments from the crown's arsenals and oversized artworks, likenesses of rulers and wartime figures. The intent shines through. This is a residence that commands respect. The initial prominent area is the king's drawing room. Crimson damask covers the walls, a golden dome overhead, furnishings so ornate they appear unsuitable for use, and showcased boldly is a Rubens. A devotional tableau, the Virgin cradling baby Jesus, with Joseph observing, rendered in Rubens's signature Baroque manner, vibrant hues, gentle skin shades, an aura of coziness and everyday life amid the holy theme. This piece has graced the staterooms for more than 200 years. It's staying put. Proceed to the adjacent space, and a Rembrandt awaits, followed by yet another in the subsequent room. These aren't minor sketches, mind you. Grand-scale portraits, subjects captured via Rembrandt's famed chiaroscuro, shadowy settings where features rise from obscurity, each fold and flaw laid bare. The painter favored honesty over idealization. He depicted reality as it appeared. Van Dyck's portraits recur across various chambers. Charles I astride his mount, the very motif we noted before in the archive's timeline. Charles in refined attire, princely offspring arranged in stiff poses, Van Dyck forged the pictorial essence of Stuart royalty. Such paintings shaped public perceptions of their sovereign. The Canaletto vistas produce a distinct impression. Numerous depictions of Venice gathered in a handful of exhibit areas. The Grand Canal from varied perspectives. The Bacino di San Marco, dotted with vessels. The Piazza San Marco teeming with crowds. Canaletto captured Venice with near photorealistic exactness, structures depicted with fidelity, architectural nuances spot on. His scenes could double as guides, traverse sufficient rooms and themes surface. Windsor amassed thoughtfully, not haphazardly. Select painters recur due to royal admiration. Particular motifs repeat to fulfill strategic aims. Royal family images, naturally, but also creations that projected authority, rightful rule, refinement, and elegance. Excellence remains unwavering. These represent prime examples from top-tier talents, pieces that top museums would spotlight, yet here they're presented offhandedly, almost incidentally, on panels they've occupied forever. Certain items have endured so lengthy that relocation feels improper, that Rubens suits its spot ideally, that Van Dyck complements its surface seamlessly. Experts might devise more gallery-style setups, but such tweaks would shatter the vibe. These quarters are designed to evoke occupancy, not orchestration. And indeed, they do. The state apartments extend beyond sightseers. Overseas dignitaries feast within these halls beneath these canvases, encircled by this heritage. The Queen held official dinners in St. George's Hall, the same venue gutted by the 1992 blaze and painstakingly rebuilt. Attendees gathered at extended tables under treasures valued in the millions, likely overlooking the artistry since the ambiance seemed innate. That's Windsor's secret. The artwork doesn't proclaim its presence. It seeks no spotlight. It merely integrates into the structure, the ornamentation, the daily backdrop. One might stroll these corridors scarcely noticing the marvels, or pause at each frame and grasp that you're immersed in icons that shaped Western artistic legacy. The intricate wooden embellishments across the rooms provide yet another dimension. Grinling Gibbons, the virtuoso woodcarver, is said to have labored at Windsor during the late 1600s. His craftsmanship dots the interiors, fine engravings of blooms, produce, foliage, all fashioned from timber with astonishing accuracy. Separate petals, stalks, bugs, all so lifelike they deceive the eye until contact reveals the grain. The overhead vaults merit scrutiny as well. Opulent frescoes of antique deities, symbolic personas, lavish Baroque designs spanning full surfaces. Antonio Vario is credited with executing numerous ones in the 1680s. His approach captured the era's elegance. Dynamic scenes with bustling figures adrift in misty skies, buildings depicted with skilled depth, and overhead designs so elaborate they could make your head spin if you gazed upward for too long. Room after room unfolds in similar fashion, layers of artwork upon artwork, paintings adorning the walls, intricate woodwork framing the entrances, vibrant murals above. Even the furnishings double as masterpieces, hangings, ceramics, timepieces, every inch adorned, every nook brimming. The overall impact hits you like a wave in the most captivating manner. This embodies the grandeur of monarchical opulence, built up over endless generations. Not all pieces hail from antiquity. Certain chairs and tables trace back to the 1800s. A few ornaments represent more modern acquisitions. Yet the foundational collection, the standout artworks and artifacts, has endured here for ages. They've weathered conflicts, escaped the blaze, outlasted shifting fashions and turbulent regimes. Officials claim the official quarters draw about 1 million sightseers each year. They stroll along, admire the displays, snap pictures in allowed spots. They pick up pamphlets explaining the surroundings. Likely, few truly appreciate the immense worth encircling them. A Rembrandt in one spot, a Van Dyck nearby, a Canaletto just ahead, each valued at tens of millions, yet presented as everyday embellishments, which they essentially are at Windsor. The visitor path is strictly guided. Guests stick to a designated route, no free roaming permitted. Contact with items is forbidden. Attendants monitor vigilantly. Surveillance eyes every corner. For beneath the relaxed vibe lies stringent protection. Windsor safeguards billions in artistic treasures amid zones that serve daily operations. The path concludes at the departure point, passing through the souvenir area and returning to the estate's open spaces. Departing guests have glimpsed maybe 10% of the castle's artistic treasures. The official suites reveal the viewable selections, the durable creations able to handle crowds, the sturdy panels suited for rooms trafficked by hordes each day. The rest remains sequestered in archives, personal quarters, secure chambers like the engraving vault sheltering Leonardo's creations. The official suites represent Windsor's outward persona, striking, steeped in history, packed with icons, yet merely a sliver of the fortress's full bounty. Chapter 7, St. George's Hall revived. The day following the inferno, authorities inspected the destruction. The sight in St. George's Hall left them stunned. All traces had vanished. The roofline, 180 feet of ancient oak rafters and sculpted elements, had tumbled entirely. The sides endured, scorched by fumes and fractured by the blaze's fury. But the hall's contents had all perished. Chairs, draperies, the planked surface, ages of skilled labor turned to ash-strewn ruins in just 15 hours. St. George's Hall served as Windsor's ritual core, the grandest chamber across the whole site. The Knights of the Garter, the realm's most ancient chivalric society, conducted rites within its bounds. Lavish dinners lined extended banqueting setups along its expanse. Sovereign nuptials, ceremonies of honor, official gatherings, every key occasion at Windsor flowed through here. Now it lay in ruins. Officials confronted a straightforward dilemma: restore it to its prior form or forge afresh. Each choice garnered advocates. Preservationists pushed for precise replication. The hall had retained its character for ages. Faithful revival would pay tribute to that legacy. Yet, forward thinkers viewed it as a chance. Why cling to the past? Why ignore that this was a 1990s revival, not some medieval relic? Discussions dragged on for months. Designers presented concepts. Scholars contributed views. Citizens chimed in. In time, a consensus formed: restore it, yet elevate it. The aim extended beyond mere replacement of the destroyed. It sought a structure to endure another 500 years. That required contemporary techniques veiled under a historic veneer. Metal frameworks substituting for the old timber-only builds, subtle fire-quelling mechanisms, temperature regulation, up-to-date cabling, all the essentials of a modern edifice tucked behind a 14th-century exterior. The revival spanned 5 years. Designers pored over archival documents, images, artworks depicting the hall's former glory. They aimed for precision. Each sculpted motif, each heraldic panel, each dimension echoing the past. But enhancement was key, too. The prior roof had consisted of seasoned beams, ideal tinder for flames. The replacement employed fresh-cut oak, timber that would mature naturally over time, slowly adopting the hue and texture of antiquity. Yet, unseasoned oak weighs more, holds moisture, resists burning better. As it cures, it contracts, so specialists had to predict how connections would shift across decades amid the settling. Artisans shaped the timbers via age-old practices, manual implements, methods frozen since the Middle Ages. But they incorporated cutting-edge calculations to guarantee lasting strength. The beams possess a distinctly medieval appearance. Fashioned in a medieval style, they are secured with steel reinforcements and crafted via computer simulations. The intricate carvings demanded exceptional craftsmanship. Artisans from the Middle Ages had produced ornate embellishments, including escutcheons displaying the heraldic arms of every knight who had served in the guard, along with emblems, crown motifs, and ornamental panels. Every detail needed manual replication. Stone sculptors relied on archival images and blueprints from the era. They employed period-specific methods, eschewing contemporary machinery in favor of classic chisels and hammers. Progress was deliberate and painstaking. Crafting a single escutcheon could span several weeks. For each motif, experts meticulously examined how medieval artisans might have executed it. The painted features posed yet another hurdle. The initial ceiling featured vibrant heraldic artwork, gilded accents, and complex designs. Reviving these involved more than duplicating patterns. It required replicating ancient pigmentation formulas, layering techniques, and the natural patina that develops on timber over time. Specialists tended to surviving artwork scorched by the blaze. Numerous pieces bore soot residues, while others suffered from moisture inflicted during suppression efforts. Each demanded precise decontamination, mending, and revival. The objective was to restore their pre-incident vibrancy, all while fortifying them for enduring another several hundred years. During the overhaul, the team seized chances to bolster fireproofing without altering the visual integrity. The updated ceiling incorporated discrete alarm networks, recessed sprinkler arrays within sculptural elements, heat monitors, and smoke alarms, advanced safeguards from the 1990s era, all concealed from view in the finished chamber. The flooring underwent comparable enhancements. It mimics aged oak boards from the medieval period. Yet, underneath resides contemporary flame-retardant infrastructure. Should flames erupt anew, the venue is engineered to isolate the blaze, quench it swiftly, and notify responders without delay. By 1997, 5 years post-blaze, St. George's Hall stood restored. The ceremonial unveiling attracted throngs of visitors. Those who recalled the space's former glory returned to gauge the fidelity of the revival. Design experts scrutinized the minutiae. Scholars evaluated historical precision. Consensus rang with approval. The interior evoked the Middle Ages. It conveyed genuineness, yet surpassed the predecessor in durability, resilience, and preparedness against catastrophes unforeseen by its ancient constructors. The endeavor's price tag reached $37 million, surpassing $70 million in current terms, yet the investment yielded far beyond a refurbished interior. It delivered reassurance. Windsor Castle would no longer risk forfeiting St. George's Hall to infernos. Not equipped with cutting-edge extinguishing tech, not fortified with non-combustible substances, not under vigilant surveillance. The space swiftly resumed its ritual roles. Royal feasts recommenced. Investiture rites for the guard persisted. The monarch entertained foreign dignitaries with suppers. All prior activities in St. George's Hall pre-fire now unfolded anew within an enclosure identical in aspect but vastly superior in function. Contemporary guests traverse St. George's Hall, beholding medieval splendor. Few perceive they're amid a 1990s recreation. The escutcheons seem heirlooms from bygone eras. The timbers suggest erosion by centuries. The planks evoke antiquity. Solely the lack of usage marks betrays it. The timber gleams flawlessly. The masonry shines immaculately. Generations must pass for the venue to acquire authentic weathering. Still, it will evolve. The verdant oak overhead is gradually assuming a richer hue. The supports are compacting. The connections are firming as the lumber cures. After 50 years, the chamber will truly resemble a medieval relic. In a century, solely specialists might differentiate renewed portions from surviving originals. The conflagration imparted a costly insight to Windsor regarding fragility. Regardless of fortification or upkeep, calamity may descend. The countermeasure embraced reconstruction with enhanced fortitude, prioritizing longevity over absolute fidelity to the past. St. George's Hall exemplifies revering heritage while confronting modernity. The enclosure gazes to antiquity, yet it's engineered for tomorrow, and the artworks adorning its panels, the rituals animating its expanse, the treasures it safeguards, all dwell in an enclosure impervious to flames henceforth. Chapter 8. The Enigma of Vermeer. Just 34 canvases, no more. Across the globe, experts concur on precisely 34 works indisputably by Johannes Vermeer. Perhaps 35, including contested claims. Or 33, if skepticism arises over select ones, but approximately 34. That's the sum. Renowned painters typically bequeathed vast legacies. Rembrandt produced more than 300 oils. Rubens amassed over 1,000 creations. Even those who perished prematurely often left scores of artifacts. Vermeer completed 34, then vanished from records for 200 years. He resided in Delft, a thriving Dutch hub famed for ceramics and commerce. Born in 1632, he passed in Sikkim at 43. Wedded, father to 11 offspring, Woody worked as an art merchant alongside his painting career and faced ongoing money troubles, even though he produced renowned masterpieces, ultimately passing away owing debts. Records from his era hardly acknowledge him, just a handful of guild papers, bits of financial paperwork, and scant remarks about his creations. Fame eluded him while he lived, not entirely forgotten, yet far from acclaimed. Merely one more Dutch artist scraping by in a metropolis teeming with creators. Following his demise, Johannes Vermeer faded entirely from the annals of art. His canvases got reassigned to different painters. Buyers possessed them unaware of the true creator. Galleries showcased them as pieces by more prominent Dutch figures. For more than 2 centuries, Johannes Vermeer could have been a non-entity. That changed in the mid-1800s when a French critic by the name of Théophile Thoré launched an inquiry. He noticed artworks credited to assorted Dutch painters that displayed a unique approach, a consistent handling of illumination, similar everyday environments, and that serene, introspective atmosphere. Thoré dove into studies, hunting for archives, analyzing pieces side by side. In 1866, he released his discoveries. He pinpointed 30 works by a long-lost Dutch painter called Vermeer. Not 30 amid a vast array, but 30 in total, the sum total from an artist erased from memory for 200 years. The art community initially doubted it, an anonymous figure thrust into the ranks of geniuses. Yet, as experts scrutinized the canvases Thoré had flagged, agreement formed. These were remarkable, all from one artist's brush. Vermeer's revival sparked an issue. Just about 30 paintings survived. Institutions and enthusiasts clamored for them right away, but supply couldn't match the hunger. Costs surged dramatically. Fakes started surfacing. Such scarcity rendered each authentic Vermeer invaluable. The piece at Windsor joined the holdings in 1762, part of the Joseph Smith acquisition. Back then, it was simply catalogued as a Dutch domestic view. No one recognized it as a Vermeer, since the name had slipped from collective recall. It was only post-Thoré's work that Windsor grasped its treasure, one of 34 canvases from a revived virtuoso, a creation destined to rank among the collection's most prized gems. The music lesson exemplifies Vermeer's signature manner flawlessly. A lady positions herself at a virginal, a favored keyboard for affluent Dutch households. A gentleman lingers nearby, observing. Rays of sun pour in from the left side windows, bathing the tableau in that hallmark Vermeer radiance. The depicted elements exude authenticity. The tiled floor vanishes into flawless one-point perspective. Illumination acts true to form, bouncing from materials, casting shades, shaping contours. Textiles reveal tactile quality. The musical tools appear functional. One might step right into this space. It feels tangible. Yet, it's evidently orchestrated. Vermeer didn't merely replicate sights. He orchestrated with precision. The female's pose, the male's posture, the sun's direction, the furnishing spots, all arranged for equilibrium and serenity. Another Vermeer trait shines here: tranquility. No events unfold. She performs. He attends. Period. Absent any conflict, movement, or narrative. Simply an unhurried instant, seized and preserved. This sets Vermeer apart. Fellow Dutch artists depicted lively tableaus, bustling markets, communal meals, pub scuffles. Vermeer captured hush, homey spaces where light simply drapes over areas and figures occupy voids. The mastery needed for such depiction is astounding. That brightness on the ground doesn't merely shine, it radiates. The dark areas hold layers and hues, not flat tones. The wall mirror's gleam rings true. Vermeer grasped optics better than many contemporaries. Certain researchers believe he employed a camera obscura, a tool that casts projections via lenses. That could account for his exacting viewpoints in chiaroscuro. Still, even with aids, the artistry lies in the execution. Perceiving accurately differs from rendering it so. Windsor's Vermeer stands as one of merely 3 in UK holdings. London's National Gallery holds 2. That's the full tally across Britain. 3 Vermeers amid countless venues. Contrast that with America, home to 12 scattered through institutions. New York's Frick collection boasts 3, the sole spot outside the National Gallery with more than 1. The Met owns 5. Washington's National Gallery has 3. This spread underscores the scarcity. Leading venues feel lucky with a single piece. 2 marks rarity. The Frick's trio establishes it as a Vermeer hub. And Windsor, not a conventional gallery, casually exhibits one of the best specimens in its royal rooms, like any other amid abundant art. Its appraised worth is immense. It's challenging to assign a value to something priceless that will never hit the market. Yet, for context, a contested Vermeer that surfaced at auction in the past few years was projected to fetch more than $200 million. The undisputed piece at Windsor would almost certainly surpass that figure by a wide margin. Just one Vermeer has vanished through theft without recovery. The Concert, swiped from Boston's Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum back in 1990. Burglars sliced it right out of its frame in a bold heist that also claimed Rembrandt's and various other treasures. That artwork is still unaccounted for. Per FBI assessments, its worth tops every other pilfered piece in recorded history. Consequently, Windsor's Vermeer receives top-tier safeguards. Vigilance in the royal residences never lapses. Patrols, surveillance, sophisticated alerts. The canvas stays put. It remains firmly within Windsor Castle's walls. The danger of relocation is simply too high. Experts have scrutinized Vermeer's methods in depth. Specialists pored over every detail of the Windsor canvas with cutting-edge tools. Radiographs uncover preliminary sketches hidden under the surface layers. Infrared scans expose revisions the artist made as he composed. Close-up examinations pinpoint the exact materials in the colors. Their discoveries affirm Vermeer's masterful prowess. He applied paint in exceptionally fine coats. Colors emerged through successive sheer glazes. He favored costly hues, especially ultramarine derived from pulverized lapis lazuli. Such extravagance underscores that these weren't mass-produced items dashed off for profit. The enigma endures. Why such a sparse output? He lived just 43 years. About 2 decades were devoted to serious creation, yielding only 34 authenticated pieces. That's barely 1.5 per year. Was his pace painstakingly deliberate? Did many creations perish somehow? Might some canvases wrongly credited to fellow Dutch painters truly belong to Vermeer? Researchers continue the hunt. From time to time, an advocate claims a work once linked to another Golden Age figure is secretly a Vermeer. Rigorous testing ensues. Most claims get debunked. Still, optimism lingers that in some overlooked trove or wrongly labeled gallery spot, an additional Vermeer lurks undiscovered. In the interim, those 34 confirmed masterpieces stand as the most analyzed, priciest, and securely guarded artworks alive, and one graces the staterooms at Windsor, its luminous glow undimmed, its quiet interior tableau unchanged, its secrets preserved. Chapter 9. The Matter of Monetary Value. The $5 billion Puzzle. Attempting to appraise Windsor Castle's artistic holdings hits a snag right away. How does one gauge worth for items destined to stay off the sales block forever? Valuers draw on recent transactions for parallels. Say a Rembrandt goes for $50 million, then comparable ones hover around that ballpark. A Vermeer, pegged at $200 million, sets the bar for its peers. Transactions offer guides, but Windsor's trove will never enter the fray. It stays with the monarchy eternally. Sales, swaps, or gifts are off limits. By law, it's safeguarded as a national trust. The sovereign acts as steward, not personal proprietor in a business context. Thus, when specialists peg the assortment at $5 billion or beyond, it's all speculative. What price tag might these treasures command if they were available, which they're not? That renders the figure both insightful and irrelevant. Begin with the Leonardo sketches, 550 in total. Modest projections put major ones at $10 million apiece. Lesser doodles could pull in $5 million. Basic math pushes the Leonardo batch past $500 million. Certain authorities argue the haul might top $1 billion if each folio hit peak bidding frenzy. The Vermeer alone could top $200 million with only 34 in existence. Desire knows no bounds. Availability is locked in place. Should any Vermeer emerge for sale, it would spark fierce competition from globe-spanning tycoons and galleries. Rembrandts prove trickier to price. Windsor holds several. His canvases fluctuate dramatically based on theme, dimensions, state of preservation, and lineage. Prime portraits fetch $50 to $80 million. Modest pieces might go for $20 to $30 million. Windsor's holdings probably encompass $200 million or higher just in Rembrandts. The Canalettos pose yet another valuation twist. Windsor boasts more than 50. Single Canalettos trade between $5 and $20 million, varying by caliber and motif. However, unloading 50 simultaneously would tank the rates. Rarity fuels premiums. Erase rarity, and premiums plummet. Even so, the Canaletto group conservatively tallies over $300 million. Beyond that lie scores of additional canvases. Van Dyck's, Rubens, Titian's, Renaissance gems, each carrying multi-million-dollar tags, together amassing hundreds of millions extra. Factor in the furnishings, too. Windsor's array features output from history's finest artisans. Ornate French pieces command millions individually. British masterworks from elite woodworkers, timepieces, china, woven hangings, ornamental objects that any institution would showcase with pride. The crown jewels, housed at the Tower of London yet integral to the wider royal holdings, add immeasurable splendor. They are appraised individually in ways that defy practicality. The gems by themselves command hundreds of millions in value, yet their historical significance renders them truly invaluable. Combine it all, and the figures become utterly incomprehensible. A cautious projection puts it at $5 billion. Certain specialists propose $8 billion. Still others estimate $10 billion or beyond. These figures hinge on factors like auction outcomes, economic climates, and decisions about selling pieces singly versus in batches. Yet these remain speculative calculations. Windsor has no intention of putting them to the test. Instead, the assortment demands safeguarding. And safeguarding demands substantial funds, enormous sums. In fact, the defenses at Windsor run at intensities beyond the reach of typical galleries. Officers with firearms keep watch around the clock. All access points receive surveillance. Cameras watch over each chamber. Sensors for movement guard areas off limits to sightseers. Just the framework for this protection devours millions each year in upkeep and personnel. Fire prevention adds to the burden. Following the 1992 blaze, Windsor overhauled all its setups. Cutting-edge alerts for flames, sprinklers concealed within design elements, mechanisms to fill rooms with non-reactive gas, cutting off oxygen to blazes without harming artifacts, detectors for heat, for smoke, with backup arrays supporting the main ones. Those enhancements tallied tens of millions, yearly care piles on additional millions. But weighed against the worth of the treasures under guard, such outlays seem trivial. A single blaze wiping out even part of the holdings would tally billions in damage. Environmental regulation brings yet more costs. The chamber housing Leonardo's sketches hold steady warmth and moisture levels throughout the seasons. Excess dampness ruins sheets of paper. Insufficient levels turn them fragile. Shifts in heat lead to swelling and shrinking that erode substances across ages. The quarters for staterooms confront parallel issues. Displayed canvases require consistent environments, neither overly warm nor chilly, neither sopping nor arid. Illumination has to illuminate adequately for guests without hastening color loss. Each space calls for ongoing oversight and tweaks. Preservation teams labor without pause. Canvases demand dusting. Frames require mending. Gold leafing needs restoration. Woodwork calls for resurfacing. Hangings seek reinforcement. The tasks persist endlessly as the assortment ages relentlessly. Windsor, staff squads of restorers. Each focuses on specific substances, experts in canvases, in documents, in wood pieces, in fabrics, in metallurgy, all toiling to delay unavoidable decay. Their instruments are advanced, magnifiers to inspect pigment strata, thermal imaging to peer below exteriors, radiography units to uncover hidden sketches, lab tests to pinpoint authentic components, scanning tech to track states across years. The restoration facility evokes a medical center with regulated air, pristine conditions, and gear that once bordered on fantasy. Outlays for tools and expertise total millions. Then comes coverage, or more precisely, the lack of it. The UK administration covers the royal holdings itself. No commercial insurer would shoulder the liability. The rates would soar impossibly high. The state thus bears the monetary onus. Should disaster strike, the hit lands on public coffers. This setup fosters compelling motivations. Authorities aim to curb dangers, as any setback drains citizen funds. Hence, the lavish spending on safeguards, enhanced defenses, superior blaze control, refined atmospheric management. Pouring millions into shielding proves logical when staking billions in masterpieces on your own account. It also demands openness regarding threats. Officials routinely evaluate Windsor's protective and restorative protocols. Documents get submitted, enhancements get proposed. No detail falls to oversight or inertia. The 1992 Inferno demonstrated the setup's effectiveness. Personnel responded with precise knowledge of priorities and methods. Escape protocols operated flawlessly. The bulk of the artworks endured thanks to drills tailored for such crises. Yet the event also exposed weaknesses. It ignited in the personal chapel, a zone with sparser foot traffic and intermittent checks. Flames raced via aged beams. They advanced quicker than expected. Had it begun after dark or elsewhere, the devastation might have been ruinous. Ever since, upgrades have flowed steadily. Additional detectors, refined quenching tech, swifter intervention tools. The aim, prevent any future blaze from ravaging what 1992 almost claimed. Valuations stay in the realm of theory. Windsor's trove holds billions only in the hypothetical way that dispersal would yield billions. But dispersal would shatter its core worth. These works transcend mere costly items. They embody cultural legacy, national icons, creations tied to Britain beyond mere possession. You cannot auction the Mona Lisa or the Sistine Chapel ceiling. Certain elements, Windsor's treasures, transcend mere trade. The holdings at Windsor fall squarely into this realm, valued in the billions, utterly invaluable, safeguarded at vast cost, and perpetually off-limits for purchase. Chapter 10. The true ownership of Windsor? It appears straightforward. Windsor Castle belongs to the monarch, King Charles III. It's his dwelling, his artworks, his estate. Yet that's not quite accurate. Windsor Castle belongs to the current sovereign in trust for the crown. This distinctive legal concept carries precise implications. The king holds Windsor in his capacity as ruler rather than as the private citizen Charles Mountbatten Windsor. Consequently, he cannot dispose of it through sale, donation, or even bequeath it via testament to successors. Upon Charles's passing, Windsor seamlessly devolves to the succeeding monarch, William. This occurs not via typical inheritance, but through the mechanism of succession. The crown shifts, carrying along all assets vested in it. Such a system traces its origins to ages past. It delineates the individual from the office. Rulers come and go transiently. The institution of monarchy endures indefinitely. Assets under the monarchy's aegis stay attached to the entity, irrespective of the throne's occupant. Thus, Charles resides at Windsor, utilizes it, and oversees its upkeep via his personnel, but he does not possess it in the manner that ordinary people hold title to their properties. He serves as steward, not outright owner. The same logic applies to the artistic holdings. The canvases, sketches, furnishings, and all the renowned works previously examined pertain to the crown. Charles cannot auction a Vermeer to support his personal expenditures. He lacks the authority to present a Rembrandt as a personal favor. Even lending items to galleries demands formal approval. Oversight falls to the Royal Collection Trust. Formed in 1987, this entity functions as a branch of the royal household, tasked with preserving and stewarding the entire assortment. The trust engages specialists, curators, restorers, scholars, security personnel, totaling hundreds, dedicated to the upkeep and defense of these pieces. Importantly, taxpayer dollars do not sustain the trust. It relies on income generated by visitors. Fees from those exploring Windsor Castle, Buckingham Palace, or additional royal sites flow directly to the trust. These admissions finance preservation efforts, protective measures, displays, and even new additions. The collection essentially sustains itself financially. Historically, this setup differed. Prior to 1993, support for the royal collection came from the civil list, the yearly stipend provided by Parliament to bolster the monarchy. However, following the devastating Windsor fire and the ensuing surge in repair expenses, sentiments among the public evolved. Why should public funds maintain opulent residences for an already affluent institution? The response involved granting access to Windsor and Buckingham Palace for fee-paying guests during periods when the sovereign was absent. These seasonal openings evolved into year-round fixtures. Crowds lined up for entry. The proceeds not only addressed the fire's damages, but also covered continuous care and repairs. Presently, Windsor Castle attracts approximately 1.5 million guests each year. Adult admission runs about $30. This generates around $45 million in annual ticket sales, offset by operational expenses. These funds enable all the trust's activities. It's an ingenious system. The royal family upholds its estates and cultural assets without imposing on public coffers. Visitors obtain entry to once secluded domains. All parties gain advantages, though conflicts arise. Windsor continues as an active royal home. Charles retreats there on weekends. The public areas shut down during his visits. Sightseers get redirected. The site operates dually as residence and exhibit space, fully embodying neither. The trust navigates these rival demands. Preservation demands restricted access. Each guest traversing the grand rooms introduces hazards: humidity from exhalations, warmth from crowds, possible mishaps. Yet funding hinges on attendance. Absent visitors, revenue dries up. Without resources, upkeep deteriorates. The approach involves meticulous oversight. Attendance gets limited. Pathways receive strict guidance. Select chambers remain off-limits to curb deterioration. Delicate artifacts stay archived. Only sturdy exhibits face public scrutiny. The administrative framework introduces further intricacies. Although the Royal Collection Trust forms part of the royal household, it functions with substantial autonomy. The monarch appoints the chair. The governing board comprises authorities in art, history, and finance. They determine policies on purchases, lendings, shows, and restoration focuses. While the sovereign, Charles, holds theoretical veto power, he routinely yields to specialist judgment. The trust mirrors operations at premier museums. Experts drive expert choices. The ruler's involvement leans ceremonial over hands-on. This setup proves vital for the artworks. Sovereigns harbor distinct preferences. Charles may favor particular styles or eras, but he cannot arbitrarily refit Windsor's interiors with preferred selections or offload disfavored ones. The trust shields the holdings from personal caprice. It likewise insulates them from governmental influences. Administrations fluctuate. Leaders rise and fall, yet the trust persists unchanged. The royal holdings remain secure no matter who holds the throne. Stepping down raises intriguing issues. Should Charles step aside right away, the artworks would face no disruption. They'd stay right in place. William would ascend as sovereign. The assets would pass seamlessly to him. Charles would depart from Windsor for his personal estates, relinquishing any rights to the pieces. This scenario has played out in the past. Edward VIII stepped down in 1936 to wed Wallis Simpson. The royal holdings remained under George VI. Edward departed only with his private belongings, leaving behind all crown-owned items. It might occur once more. Resignation doesn't lead to splitting or contesting the artworks. The holdings endure as a unified entity. The succeeding ruler assumes identical oversight duties. The framework also manages borrowings and displays. Institutions around the world seek to borrow from the royal holdings. The foundation reviews every application. Does the requesting venue have a solid reputation? Can they ensure proper safeguards? Do the storage environments safeguard the items effectively? Once approved, the loans go forward. Items from Windsor feature in shows across the globe before coming back. The foundation occasionally adds new items, though not often. The holdings are vast already, yet chances sometimes emerge. An item of great historical value hits the market. A missing element in the holdings could be addressed. The foundation buys it if resources permit. Lately, purchases aim to patch gaps in the historical narrative. Items that reveal the holdings' development, documents tracing origins, objects that provide context for existing treasures. Expansion isn't the aim just to increase size. Rather, it's about rounding out the tale. The modern digital era opens fresh avenues. The foundation has documented and imaged every item in the holdings. Scholars everywhere can view the details digitally. Learners can examine works they might never encounter physically. The holdings gain worldwide reach without the need for journeys. This openness redefines possession. Certainly Charles oversees it. Indeed, the foundation handles daily affairs. Yet, in a profound way, the holdings belong to all. They form a shared human legacy, not a single lineage's hoard. The oversight model guarantees their safeguarding and availability. That's the core reason the Crown's framework holds value. It shifts personal control into communal guardianship. The sovereign upholds the holdings. The holdings benefit society. Windsor endures as it has for ages, a vault of cultural treasures shielded by regal power, but safeguarded for future eras. Chapter 11. The treasures that slipped through. Not all items remained at Windsor. Across more than 500 years, works have departed the holdings, at times by choice, other times via theft or lost to uncontrollable events. Every exit reveals tales of shifting focuses, tough eras, or mere misfortune. The greatest departures occurred during the Commonwealth dispersal. As noted earlier, after executing Charles I, Parliament sold off his holdings, scores of masterpieces scattered throughout Europe. The Gonzaga canvases he had strived to obtain, creations by Titian, Raphael, Mantegna, all put up for sale to settle obligations and support the emerging regime. Following the 1660 restoration, Charles II sought to reclaim as much as possible. He dispatched representatives throughout Europe to locate items from the Commonwealth dispersal. They recovered a number. Certain owners agreed to return pieces to the Crown. Some declined, and numerous artworks had faded into private hands where they persist now. The Louvre, in Paris, possesses several canvases that were once Charles I's. The Prado in Madrid does too. Galleries across Europe exhibit pieces that flowed through Windsor prior to the 1650s sales. From time to time, experts uncover a work's history, linking it to the English royal holdings, though it's been absent for hundreds of years by then. Retrieval isn't on the table. George IV brought about his own departures. Upon ascending in 1820, he received a considerable array of items. Yet George indulged in opulent preferences and faced ongoing financial woes. He poured money into constructions, celebrations, and affairs. When cash dwindled, he offloaded artworks, typically not the stars. George recognized true worth. He realized Rembrandt and Canaletto works were priceless, but minor efforts, scenes by obscure artists, those could yield funds without gutting the holdings. Accounts indicate he offloaded many items over his rule to sustain his habits. Queen Victoria and Prince Albert pursued another path. They avoided sales. Instead, they distributed pieces, presents to relatives, tokens for foreign guests, gestures of thanks to devoted staff. These were often modest, sketches, engravings, ornamental goods, yet they accumulated over years. Victoria especially enjoyed bestowing family withholdings items. A niece's nuptials might earn a canvas. A nephew's celebration could yield a prized sketch. She viewed it as dispersing lineage's legacy. No, even the body raised objections since Victoria reigned as queen and acted at her discretion. Certain artifacts from that era still turn up from time to time. An auctioneer might reveal a sketch boasting royal origins. Records indicate the Queen presented it to a family member back in the 1870s. Today, heirs are parting with it. The transaction holds full legality. She held personal ownership of the object and had the right to bestow it, though this ensured its permanent exit from the formal holdings. Pilfering occurs less frequently, yet it's not unheard of. Security at Windsor has long been robust, yet persistent criminals sometimes prevail. Back in 1990, amid upgrades at the castle, various minor objects vanished, items like silver containers and tiny portraits, nothing rivaling the Leonardo sketches or grand canvases, yet priceless all the same. Authorities retrieved a portion, while the rest elude detection. The robbery at Boston's Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum serves as a stark warning of pitfalls Windsor sidesteps via strict safeguards. That same year, intruders posing as cops gained entry, restrained the security team, and devoted 81 minutes to swiping 13 pieces, among them a Vermeer, 3 Rembrandts, 5 Degas creations, plus more. The haul's worth clocks in at around $500 million. 3.5 decades on, the works stay unrecovered. Vacant frames linger in their spots, sliced clean from the walls. A $10 million bounty dangles from the museum. The FBI presses on with probes, but the whereabouts of the treasures remain a puzzle. A lapse in Windsor's defenses could invite comparable devastation. Those Leonardo sheets would lure elite crooks without fail. A single incursion into the print storage might yield art valued in the hundreds of millions. Hence, protection runs at intensities beyond most galleries' budgets. The stakes prove far too steep. Environmental calamities present further hazards. The blaze of 1992 highlighted the peril to ages of acquisitions in mere moments. Yet Windsor has weathered deluges, gales, and building collapses too. Every episode endangers the integrity or survival of masterpieces. In 1824, rising waters harmed sections of the ground level. Moisture invaded spaces housing canvases. Numerous pieces endured saturation harm. Experts salvaged the bulk through painstaking efforts, though restoration dragged on for months, and certain items never regained their former state. World War II brought distinct perils. Axis explosives rained on the capital with regularity. The castle's silhouette, prominent from afar, marked it as a prime mark. Parts of the royal collection underwent relocation. Key canvases shifted to rural estates. The Leonardo folios relocated to fortified sites distant from probable strikes. St. George's Chapel stripped out its colored panes for concealment. The fortress itself adopted defenses. Glass got fortified with sand barriers. Immovable treasures received shielding layers. Suppression gear stationed across the grounds. Personnel rehearsed crisis protocols relentlessly. The site braced for assaults that, by fortune, never materialized. Post-conflict, items repatriated fully. The pictures, folios, glazing, all back in place. Windsor reverted to routine, though the dispersal underscored how even bastions falter amid crises. Certain absences defy easy answers. Ledgers spanning eras reveal items that evaporate sans trace. A canvas noted in 1700 omits from the 1750 ledger. No mentions of auctions, impairments, or losses. It just fades from the ledgers. Such enigmas vex scholars. Whither these relics? Did mishaps claim them unlogged, insiders snatch them, discreet disposals occur undocumented, or casual handouts erase memory? Probably a blend of scenarios. Archiving in bygone times fell short of flawless. Items slipped away. From time to time, strays resurface. An auction spotlights a canvas with crown lineage unknown to have departed Windsor. Forensic scrutiny verifies authenticity. Papers link it to the royal holdings once. Abruptly, a vanished gem reclaims visibility. It's merely relocated. The Royal Collection Trust pursues buybacks when resources permit. Should the holder consent to part with it? Should it mend a key void? Yet, typically, gone treasures endure as such. Time's passage seals their fate. They integrate into fresh troves. The narrative advances. Windsor's surviving bounty dazzles regardless. True, departures accrued across eras, but the residue amply compensates. The Leonardo folios, the Vermeer, the Rembrandts, Van Dycks, Canalettos, ample icons to populate a score of elite institutions. The mission boils down to this: safeguard the holdings, shield them, sustain them, guarantee that in half a millennium, viewers behold today's vistas. No further realm dispersals, no infernos claiming uniques, no offhand bequests or frantic auctions. Windsor absorbed teachings through tough trials at times, yet absorbed them it did. And the assortment enduring, thinned from potential plenitude though it be, endures as one of the planet's premier art troves. Chapter 12. Living with History. Windsor Castle stirs to life at dawn. As early as 7 a.m., employees begin their routines inside. Housekeepers, guards, and restorers review surveillance footage from the night before, while repair teams tackle any problems that cropped up overnight. The estate functions much like a compact town, with essential systems humming nonstop. When King Charles stays there, the royal flag rises over the round tower. On days when tourists arrive, some sections stay inaccessible. The monarch's private quarters are perpetually restricted, yet the king's presence prompts even broader limitations. Spaces for state affairs shut to the public, pathways alter accordingly. The fortress toggles effortlessly between its primary role as a residence and its secondary one as an exhibit space. Around 9 a.m., initial groups of sightseers assemble at the gates. Attendants verify admissions, guests undergo thorough checks. Luggage gets scanned, followed by metal detectors akin to those at air terminals. Windsor safeguards more than just architecture. It's defending art treasures valued in the billions. The prescribed path leads explorers by iconic pieces whose true worth might escape notice. That Rembrandt hanging nearby? $50 million. The Van Dyck in the adjacent chamber? $30 million. The Canaletto that follows? $20 million. Many guests snap pictures and proceed, oblivious to traversing what equates to a fortified depository showcasing its assets. Vigilant personnel observe without pause, distinct from the uniformed sentries that draw camera flashes. Those are genuine troops carrying out legitimate tasks, though largely for show. True protection operates discreetly. Undercover agents, surveillance devices in all nooks, detectors for movement, floor sensors, advances that blend into the background for most. Preservation efforts persist no matter the foot traffic. In secluded workshops away from crowds, experts scrutinize canvases through magnifiers. They scrutinize colors. They capture images across various wavelengths. They record states. They devise interventions for items displaying wear or harm. Such labors are perpetual. Artwork degrades gradually, almost invisibly, from one day to the next. Yet across seasons and eras, the toll builds. Colors flake, fabrics fray, frames twist. Restorers aim to decelerate this inevitable decline wherever feasible. To guarantee that 500-year-old masterpieces endure for centuries more, environmental regulation proves vital. Sensors in each space track warmth and moisture levels. Excess heat makes pigments pliable. Extreme chill renders them fragile. High moisture fosters fungi. Low levels cause fractures. Mechanisms fine-tune these factors unceasingly, safeguarding treasures while ensuring comfort for human guests. The chamber housing Leonardo's creations enforces even tighter protocols. Temperature stays within 1 degree, moisture within 5%, illumination kept to a bare minimum. It serves as a sealed sanctuary, granting entry only under rigorous oversight when needed. St. George's Chapel upholds its sacred duties. Worship services occur frequently, along with ceremonies like marriages and memorials. This isn't merely an exhibit, it's a vibrant spiritual site that also harbors notable artworks and structures. Queen Elizabeth II found her final resting place there in September 2022, alongside her parents and sister. Prince Philip lies there too. The space accommodates both explorers and those in grief. The estate's ritualistic functions endure as well. Lavish dinners in Sign. George's Hall welcome dignitaries. Overseas dignitaries feast beneath renovated vaults, encircled by holdings valued at hundreds of millions. The yearly Garter ceremony unfolds with members of the order parading in ornate historical attire, upholding age-old customs. Staging such occasions demands precise orchestration. Hosting an elegant meal for 200 amid irreplaceable artifacts, it hinges on exhaustive preparation, dining setups positioned clear of valuables, waitstaff paths plotted to reduce proximity to delicate items, protection ramps up for gatherings, no detail overlooked. The Royal Collection Trust oversees this intricate endeavor. Funding derives solely from admissions. More than 1 million individuals visit Windsor each year. Fees cover all: restoration, protective personnel, wages, upkeep, displays. The site sustains itself via tourism. This dynamic fosters the need to boost attendance without accelerating deterioration. Greater crowds yield funds but accelerate erosion. Groups produce warmth and dampness, footsteps scour pathways, contact mars surfaces. Each guest inflicts minute harm that compounds steadily. The organization navigates these tensions with precision. Limits on attendance prevent overloads. Select areas shutter temporarily for care. Paths rotate to distribute stress. Sustainability drives decisions. The fortress generates income without compromising its core attractions. Online efforts broaden reach past on-site tours. The Royal Collection site provides ultra-clear scans of thousands of items. Scholars examine artifacts from afar. Learners craft essays on visuals they've only viewed digitally. The holdings expand access world globally available. Digital exhibits extend access even further. In the midst of the pandemic, as Windsor shut its doors to the public, virtual tours ensured the artworks remained within reach. Individuals across the globe delved into the royal residences from afar, examined Leonardo's sketches via displays, and discovered insights into Vermeer's masterpieces right from their living rooms. Such digital entryways redefine the essence of experiencing Windsor. Yet, being there in person delivers an unmatched quality. Gazing at a genuine Rembrandt in the flesh surpasses any online image. Though for those unable to journey to England, virtual options beat absence entirely. Now, Windsor confronts the path ahead. At 76, King Charles approaches a time when Prince William must assume the guardianship duties once managed by his father and grandmother. The artworks will transfer to him and later to his offspring. The tradition endures. Every era grapples with identical duties: safeguard the legacy received. Shielded against harm, disappearance, or catastrophe. Handed on undamaged, the 1992 blaze delivered stark warnings on fragility. Yet it also demonstrated the mechanism's effectiveness. Personnel understood the priorities for rescue. They retrieved them successfully. The holdings endured. Anticipating tomorrow's risks proves more elusive. Global warming may undermine structural integrity. Escalating heat could strain preservation efforts. Civil unrest might jeopardize budgets or safeguards. Innovations could introduce novel theft methods. Each successive group needs to respond to its distinct pressures. The core obligation, however, stays constant. Windsor safeguards masterpieces that represent shared human heritage. Legally, they belong to the monarchy. Geographically, they stay in England. But their value extends far beyond borders. Sketches by Leonardo resonate with all art enthusiasts. Vermeer's canvases motivate audiences everywhere. The ensemble fulfills roles greater than royal or national identity. This explains the importance of the stewardship framework. It guarantees endurance past any one lifetime. Rulers pass away, reigns shift, yet the establishment continues, and the creations stay secured by an entity that surpasses any individual. As today's tourists depart Windsor, they pass souvenir outlets stocked with maps and pictures. They traverse landscapes blending ancient fortifications with contemporary defenses. They might have devoted around 3 hours within, encountered roughly 10% of the holdings and caught a mere sliver of the site's true depth. The majority depart content. They admired Rembrandt's works. They wandered opulent chambers. They absorbed historical details. They snapped images for online sharing. They felt the visit justified the cost. What often escapes their full awareness is the wonder they encountered. Half a millennium of acquisitions, 9 centuries of unbroken residency, pieces that weathered internal conflicts, infernos, global conflicts, and evolving preferences, all gathered within a single fortress amid the Thames, all persisting, all defended, all open to view. Windsor Castle doesn't stand still in history. It progresses, it adjusts, it fulfills fresh roles alongside enduring ones. Yet amid every shift, its essential mission holds firm: to conserve elegance, to defend the past, to guarantee that treasures cherished by those who came before stay open to those yet to arrive. That's the reality of coexisting with history, not viewing the bygone as lifeless or fixed, but sustaining it as vibrant, occupied, practical, and pertinent. Windsor achieves this more masterfully than likely any other royal residence worldwide, and the $5 billion worth of art adorning its interiors serves as evidence that, remarkably at times, conservation succeeds.